This is the last page of last week's homework packet. When we get started, we'll be in 6.2, problem 1. It starts on page 384. Okay, my friends. I already did, so they just haven't tuned in yet. Thank you, though. Solve by the graphing method, then solve again using substitution on the back. Your answers should match. You probably didn't have a back to do it on, so you need a separate piece of paper for the substitution method. Look at this problem. That looks a lot like one from our quiz on Friday. Okay? The first thing that we need to do for either method is get y by itself. So right now I'm looking at this one. The first thing I'm going to do is minus an x from both sides. That gives me negative y equals negative x plus 6. The second thing I'm going to do is I got to make that negative y positive. I divide everything by a negative 1. Y equals x minus 6. Okay, that's in y equals form. I can graph it, and that's also the first step in the way we've been doing substitution method. Okay, on this side, a little bit easier, fewer steps. Minus a 2x from both sides of the equal, because I want y by itself. Again, one thing to be careful of, as you're moving things to get y by itself, if you're trying to move a positive, you do that by adding its opposite. It cancels it out. Plus 2 minus 2. Okay? So you're adding the opposite each time. We have some people adding the same thing to both sides, and it's not turning out well for them. This leaves y by itself equals negative 2x. Now, if I'm going to solve it by the graphing method, I'm going to use the negative 6 as the y-intercept and find it on the graph. Oh, I have to go down a little bit from this current Cartesian plane. And then I look in front of the x for the slope. If there's no slope, then it's 1 over 1. That means from this dot, this y-intercept, up 1 over 1. Up 1 over 1. There's one of the lines. And we draw it carefully with a ruler because we want to see where it's going to crisscross. You guys need me to get the rulers out? Okay. You can send one person up from your table to grab a compass. Yeah. We good? All right. Shh. Quiet, please. All right, so there's one line. Now, when you have a y equals and it only has an x term, then you start at 0, 0. You can think of it as plus 0, and that's the y-intercept. So sometimes you have an x term, but nothing else. You only have one thing there. So start at 0, 0, then look in front of the x for the slope. If it's a fraction, you're ready to go. If it's not a fraction, put whatever number it is over 1. Top is rise, bottom is run. Only this time we're working with a -2, so from this dot, I'm going to go down 2 to the right 1. You're always moving to the right, but whether it's plus, you'll go up, and when it's negative, you'll go down. So there's the second line. Now, one huge place, a ton of people missed points on our test. And maybe because we are so good at using the graphing calculator, once it was on a paper graph, you weren't sure what to do. But when they're asking you to solve, what they want is, what is the spot those two lines have in common? We talked about it as the break-even point.
The intersection.
The intersection, but what you need to give for the answer is the ordered pair, the x and the y. So right
4,
here,
2,
but you always say the x first, and
2,
this is,
4,
thank you, 2, -4. Okay, so there is one question on that quiz, which I'm not sure if I could give back yet. I'll check with Miss Morell, but it's on Aries, where you graphed, and it was a 3-point problem. A lot of you I gave 2 points to. You had a nice graph, but you didn't have the ordered pair.
Oh,
okay. Now, another thing about that problem is just like this one, it asks you to solve it in 2 ways. First by graphing, and then by substitution. So here we go for the substitution piece. You're going to take the 2 equations in their y equals form, and now we set them equal to each other. X minus 6, -2x. Okay, so because they both equal y, we can set the other side of the equation equal to each other. X minus 6 and the -2x. Now you want to get numbers on one side and variables on the other. I think I'm going to move this x. It's a positive x, so I need to add a negative. Positive, negative cancels it out. Leave the -6 by itself. One thing I saw good is you guys are noticing that this x has an invisible 1. So that, when we add them, is -3x. Divide by -3, divide by -3, x equals +2, because a negative divided by a negative is positive. Thank you, Ruby. Now, another mistake that I saw in the quiz is you didn't go ahead and take this and find the y. You found the x and stopped. Okay? So right here, just like for the intersection, we have 2 coordinates, an x and a y. When we're solving by substitution, whatever we find out for x, we need to bring back up and plug it into one of these. This is the simplest equation. Y equals -2x. I can replace the x with 2, because I just found out that's what x equals, and -4. So the ordered pair here is 2, -4. That's x, that's y, and that matches what we found graphing, 2, -4. Guys, we're looking at the last page of the homework packet from last week. People had questions. This is what the overall graphing thing looked like. Mr. Craig, do you mind doing a special project for me today?
Craig.
I have Sam Emick, who was absent a lot, sick a lot last week, and didn't do so good on this. Do you mind being his buddy on a partner-type quiz fashion? You guys want to go to the library or something for a little bit?
I got my pencil. We have a ruler and a calculator.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. All right. Was there one in particular you wanted, Molly? Number 3. Okay, quiet, please. Number 3. Molly had a question on number 3. So, I can see why. These, again, need to be rearranged to get them into y equals. All right. I've got a 4y here. I'm going to minus the 6x. Can you see that? Is it big enough? Or make it a little bigger? Got room. Okay. Plus 6 minus 6. Brody, put that down, please. Plus, or were you looking at your Aries? Plus 6 minus 6 cancels out. 4y equals negative 6 plus 2. Too much talking. And I forgot the x. There we go. Divide by 4. Oh, fractions are your friends. Y equals. This can be reduced. It's 6 over 4, negative 3 over 2x, plus this can be reduced. 2 over 4 is 1/2. Andy, what do I have to do here to get y by itself?
Well, probably going to have to go minus 3.
Minus a 3x.
21.
Okay, and Brody, why did he add a negative 3?
Because you gotta move to the other side.
And this one's positive and this one's negative. What happens when we add those?
You gotta cross
Those cancel out. 2y equals negative 3x. Move the 1 over a little bit. Divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. Oh, I see why this is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What do you know? Not even bigger than it, Jason. They're the same equation. So let's graph it. Hello? Let's graph it. This is 1/2. 1/2 is in between 0 and 1. That's the y-intercept. It's negative 3 over 2. So from here down 3 and then over 2. And they're both the same line. So I'm going to put my note to myself, same line. But remember how up in the top one we had to come up with the intersect? Where do these guys intersect? Everywhere. Infinite solutions. Because they intersect right here, right here, right here, right here, into infinity in both directions. When you get the same line, infinite solutions.
Got it.
What would it be if you got parallel lines instead?
They'd be like this.
No solution.
That's number 2.
Is number 2 like that? Okay.
Oh,
Yes.
never mind.
All right. At this point, make sure your name is on it. One person from each table. Bring the packets up, please.
I got a question. Right here, when I get my computer. Right here. Off. And it was at like 7:14. I put it right here in the corner.
Okay, but in all of these, you need to say what's the intersect.
Okay.
What's the order pair where they intersect?
I still remember.
All right, page 384. Oscar. Hello?
Oh, that's the right word.
Hi.
Hello.
384, taking a look this way. Okay, 6.2 is the last section we're going to do in this book that'll be new for the final. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're working on 6.2. Thursday, we'll review 6.2. Friday, we'll start reviewing for the final. The final will go all the way back to the beginning of the year. And you already noticed in last week's homework packet, some of that work is review of old chapters. Your homework packet you're going to get today is also review of old chapters to help you get ready for that final. I think you're going to at first say, oh my gosh, that was so long ago. But then after you get into it, say, wait a minute. I remember this, I remember that, and wow, we learned a lot this semester. Finishing off chapter 6, it's going to take a final next week. After we get back from winter break, we're going to volume 2. So goodbye to this book, and then we're moving on to volume 2. Yes?
Do you have to take this book out?
You may, if you'd like. Okay?
You get to shoot it.
Chapter 7, we're going to skip. Okay? There's a lot of books, there's way too much for regular humans to do in 1 year. So we just start fresh in chapter 8 with the next volume. Okay? All right. Top of page 384. There's a comic gurus group. Who's a good joke maker here?
You would.
Brody. Do you do stand-up comedy? No. Every day?
Every day.
How about Oscar?
Oscar.
Oscar's a little bit funny. I don't know. We know he sings. I've seen some dancing actually too. Oscar, could you read to us about the comic gurus? Where is Memo?
There are a total of
Excuse me.
people who joined the comic gurus group on social media. Female group members outnumber males by 34. How many males and females joined the comic gurus group?
Good. Comic gurus. Guru is like an expert on something. Okay? Number 1. Brody, could you read number 1 for us?
Write an equation in standard form that represents the total number of people who join the comic gurus group. Use X to represent the female members and use Y to represent the male members.
Okay, so they already gave us some variables. X is female, Y is males. Equation is standard for the total number of people. Okay, what was the total number of people? Go back. 324 is the total. That's the total you get when you add men and women. Add men and women. Mr. B and JP, the principal. Write an equation in standard form to represent the number of female members in the relationship to the number of male members in the relationship. Now, they gave us information about the total right here, and then they gave us something else. Female group members outnumber males by 34. What does outnumber mean?
Exceed,
they're bigger. Okay? So, females is X. X, if we look at how far apart they are, or the difference between the two, they're 34 bigger. They gave you 2 sentences, 2 pieces of information, and we're using that to make 2 different equations about the same situation. How are these equations the same? How are they different?
well, let's say both equal X or Y. Or,
Both have X and Y. How are they different?
34 and 324.
working with different solutions or totals. Because they kind of describe the problem from a slightly different perspective. This is looking at what happens when you add x and y. This is looking at how far apart they are, what happens when you subtract x and y. Complete parts A through E to write and solve a linear system of equations for this problem situation. Write a linear system for this problem situation. Okay? So let's see. I kind of have these in opposite order. I'm going to switch that around so that they match. See this x plus y? I'm going to write that first. And then I'm going to take this equation and write that second. It's probably time to bring it on up. There's our system of equations. They both are talking about males and females. They're both talking about Comic Gurus group. And here's something new. Add the two equations together. So taking a look at this system and the way that I wrote it, I have the x's and the y's lined up. I have equals and the numbers on the right. Put a big line underneath. We're going to add just like a second grade addition problem. So right here I've got an x and an x, both with the 1 in front. What happens if we add those two together? 2x. Right here I have a positive y and a negative y. What happens when I add those? Goodbye to you guys. Bring down the equals. Now we're going to add these numbers. 4 plus 4 is 8. 2 plus 3 is 5. And then I have a 3. Solve the resulting equation. Now I have a smaller little baby equation they want me to solve. What do I need to do for our last step? Divide by 2.
179.
179. Now, okay, good. We're going to go up to D. I wasn't sure because we're not done. Whenever we have these kind with an x and a y, we found x. That's half of what we need. Now, top of the next page. Substitute the x value that you obtained into part C into one of the original equations to determine the value of y. I've got two equations. Martine, put that down, please. One that adds up to 324 and one that subtracts to make 34. Which one would you like?
Subtract.
I hear a subtract, I hear an add. Okay, here's the add one. X plus y equals 324, and it doesn't matter. You could use either one. We just found out x equals 179. Where'd I get that 179? From the last equation, from when we divided, and I've taken the x and substituted the 179 in. Now I can figure out what y is. What do I got to do to get y by itself? Subtract 179 from both sides. What do we get, Brody? Is that what your hand was up for? Then calculate it. We need to go minus 179, minus 179. You got a calculator? I'm hearing 145 around. Now, interpret the solution memo in terms of the problem situation. I found out x is 179 and y is 145, but what does that mean? What was our situation? We have comics, right?
They were asking where it intersects.
It's where it intersects, but
Ooh, I got this.
what is X and what is Y?
X is the females in the group, and Y is the males.
Females in the group and males in the group. What effect did adding the equations have? Remember one of our first steps? We lined them up like an addition problem with the x's stacked, the y's stacked, and the numbers stacked and added straight down. What happened after that step? Here's where we are. I'm looking back. Oh, can you see? Yeah. Right here, we added the two together. Here's the first equation, second equation. We added them. How is this different than those two? Brian, is your hand up or are you stretching? Okay.
Is it because we combined the equations, not substituted?
We combined instead of substituting, and did that help us any? What was the result after we combined?
We got the answer for X.
And did we have a y in here? So what happened when we added? What happened right here?
Y got taken out.
Y got taken out. Sometimes when you have a solution of equation and you can see, wow, if I add these two, the y goes away. Was that hard to solve right here? No. Brody, need you paying attention up here. So again, Brody, what happened to the y's when we added these? They crossed out. And then the equation that I have, Tony, how many steps did that equation take? Two more steps, okay? The adding of the equations, Oscar, canceled out one of the variables. Oscar, what happened when we added the equations? Oscar, what happened when we added one of the equations? Yeah, what happened? No, you look up here. Don't listen to Brody. You need me to make it bigger? Here we go. What happens right here, Oscar?
You get rid of y.
Okay. Number 6. Let's write that down. When we added the equations, the y's canceled. Describe how coefficients of y in the original relationships were. Oh, you need me not to move that yet? Okay. Coefficients of y. In order for them to cancel, what was true about the y's? They were opposites. One was positive, one was negative. They exactly matched except for being opposites. Same value, positive and negative. Write that down for number 7, please. They were opposites. All right. That's it. That's new. So we have one new way to go about solving systems of equations. Right now we're going to put books away and rulers away, and I'm giving you your new homework packet.
I got it.